She's so fucking shy. She takes selfies with a giant camera.
What is up, everybody? It is Zach, and I have a little bit of a disclaimer before I start this video. I want to be clear about something. This video is coming from a place of absolute love and passion for Life is Strange. With reports that Life is Strange Double Exposure didn't sell as well as expected, and knowing about the heartbreaking layoffs that happened at Deck 9, especially from their story team, I'm making this video because I genuinely care about this series and I really want to see it thrive. So without any further ado, let's just get on into the video. Life is Strange is a franchise that many people hold near and dear to their hearts for a multitude of different reasons. And in today's video, I wanted to talk about how I think Square Enix and Deck 9 should proceed with the Life is Strange series. But before I really dive into everything, I think it's important to explain where I stand with this series and why I care about it so much. I've played every single Life is Strange game so far. The original, Before the Storm, Life is Strange 2, True Colors, and most recently, Double Exposure. My journey with this series actually started with True Colors. That was my first Life is Strange game, and I immediately fell in love with its atmosphere, its heartfelt stories, and the way it made me connect so deeply with its characters. After playing True Colors, I went back and I played the original Life is Strange, and that's the game that truly captured my heart. The story, the emotions, the choices you make, everything about it just really resonated with me. The world of Arcadia Bay and its characters, especially Max and Chloe, will forever hold a special place in my heart. And of course, that shocking reveal at the end of Mark Jefferson being the real villain. I really love a good plot twist, and that one got me, even though the signs were all there. That moment alone sealed this game as one of my all-time favorites. But what really stood out to me in the first Life is Strange game, among all the other things, was the time traveling mechanic. I loved how it wasn't just a cool gameplay feature, but it was also a storytelling tool that shaped every part of Max's journey. I loved using it to solve puzzles, to build up the relationships between Max and the other characters at Blackwell Academy, and to change the outcomes of moments big and small. And I don't even mean just using the time rewinding mechanic to change outcomes of conversations. Moments like when you go to the alternate universe and you see Chloe paralyzed from her car crash and she basically asks you to kill her, to let her die, to take her away from her pain and suffering. Moments like that are moments that stuck with me even after the credits rolled. From there, of course, I played the other Life is Strange games, Before the Storm, 2, and then Double Exposure when it launched. So even though I haven't been playing it as long as many other players have been, I do feel very passionately about this series because I did, in a way, still go through the series just like everyone else did and experience the stories and love them all dearly. And that's another point I wanted to make. Every single Life is Strange game that I played, even my least favorites, still ended up being experiences that I really enjoyed. Life is Strange Double Exposure, in my opinion, got way too much hate. Yes, there are some issues, which I pointed out in my review that I posted last year, but this game is nowhere near as bad as many people tried to paint it out to be. With that being said though, I do think that Deck 9 really need to work hard to make the next Life is Strange game as good as it can be. Double Exposure set up what seems to be a sequel, coming out at some point, so I really want to hit home the different things that I think that Deck 9 should do to make this game as good as it could potentially be. Let's start with Max Caulfield herself. In Double Exposure, we saw a more mature, grounded version of her, which I think should absolutely carry forward. But for the next game, I would love to see Deck 9 lean more into her trauma from the first Life is Strange game. The grief of either losing Chloe or being forced to sacrifice Arcadia Bay, that's such an untapped well of potential in terms of emotional storytelling. Even bringing Max back to places like Blackwell Academy or Arcadia Bay through time travel sequences could work beautifully, letting us feel that emotional connection again. And yes, they did technically do that in Life is Strange Double Exposure, but they missed a few beats which I think would have been really nice. What if we actually saw Mark Jefferson in that bowling alley sequence where Max had to be tied up like she was when she was in the dark room? Or what if in the bathroom sequence when we saw Max pointing the gun at Safi, what if we actually just saw Nathan Prescott and Chloe? I don't know why they felt kind of like they had to tiptoe around the original game's characters when these emotional moments from Max's past really are important and should definitely have reflected the first Life is Strange game. Now, about Chloe. I completely understand how complicated it would be for Square Enix and Deck 9 to bring her back in a meaningful way without making one ending canon. I want them to know I get that, but I still think there are creative ways to include her character, even if it's just symbolically or through time-bending mechanics. Now let me take a moment to address the controversy regarding Max and Chloe's relationship. Many people think that Deck 9 definitely broke the lore and broke a lot of people's hearts when they made Max and Chloe break up if you chose the sacrificing Arcadia Bay ending. And I wanted to give my input on this controversy as it kind of shapes how I feel about Chloe as a whole. Looking at their friendship and looking at how they grew throughout Life is Strange, the original, I personally do not think Max and Chloe would have had a lasting, meaningful relationship. I think that the amount of trauma that they both had gone through, Chloe's emotional unavailability, and just the amount of trauma that Max went through, all at the expense of keeping Chloe alive, would definitely naturally tear them apart at some point. I know many people are Max and Chloe ride or diers. That's just personally how I feel about them. Obviously, I have not been a Life is Strange fan since the beginning, so maybe it would change if I had played the games when I was younger. But looking at it from a realistic standpoint and how Life is Strange Double Exposure framed their breakup, to me it kind of makes sense in a kind of way, and I get why they did it. However, like I said, even if they are broken up, or even if Chloe dies in the original game, I still think that Deck 9 could find ways to include Chloe in the actual story. Let's start off with the saving Chloe ending and how I think they could handle that. Personally, I would actually like to see Chloe actively tied into the story and maybe even helping Max deal with the threat of someone like Safi. If you don't know, at the end of Life is Strange Double Exposure, basically Max and Safi kind of face off because they have two different ideals of what they should be doing with their powers, and seemingly there's going to be a conflict of some sort in the next game regarding it, as Safi wants to build an Avengers-like team of people with powers, which I'll get into in a little bit. But given that Chloe has dealt with these powers before and knows how to handle Max with them, I feel like Chloe would be an obvious choice to help Max this situation. And we do get little hints of that at the end of Double Exposure where we see Max and Chloe text a little bit, but I would love to see Chloe actually come back and help Max, even if it's just for a chapter or two. I'm not saying Chloe has to be a heavy presence throughout the game, but I would love to at least see her a little bit throughout the story. After all, her and Max are broken up. They have no obligation to spend a ridiculous amount of time with each other. But I do think her presence in the story, if she is still alive, if you chose that ending, is kind of needed, especially with how obviously fans responded to her not being really in the game at all, besides a few cameo voice lines. Now, if you sacrifice Chloe, I feel like there's a little more potential here because obviously sacrificing Chloe means that there wasn't any breakup, meaning that Max's feelings for Chloe and how, she felt about their friendship and the sadness of her having to sacrifice her is all still there. Yes, it had happened like 10 years prior to the events of the game, but that emotional weight is still very much there. So there's loads of different ways that they can get Chloe involved. Her presence could come through memories, dreams, or younger versions of her that Max can interact with while reflecting on what she has lost. Or they could have Max try to do some time-bending shenanigans like they did in the first game. Yeah, it would be kind of treading old ground, but maybe Max could feel at a point of hopelessness, because Safi is really the only person that can actually understand Max at this moment. She has powers, she was there for everything that happened with Max, she experienced the storm. Everything that Safi has been through with Max is somewhat equivalent to what Chloe went through with Max. So I feel like Max wanting Chloe back could be a natural progression of her losing Safi in more ways than one. Either way, in my personal opinion, in a big way or a small way, Chloe definitely deserves a place in Max's story. Let's talk about the romance for a second here. I personally think that Max does not necessarily need a romantic partner to be validated in this story. In Life is Strange Double Exposure, Max could either choose between romancing Amanda or Vin, but personally, I did not feel like either one of these characters hit the right notes for me. Fans already associate Max and Chloe's bond, and especially given how a lot of the people in the LGBTQ community view Max and Chloe's relationship being one of the first big, strong instances of lesbian representation in video games, pushing Max to another relationship could feel both a little hollow as well as an insult to the community who really stood behind Max and Chloe. Like I said, I do not think their relationship would have lasted either way, but it cannot be understated how much of a staple that these two people are for the LGBTQ community, especially in terms of the video game world. All the stuff about Chloe aside, Max just doesn't really even need to be involved in relationships anyways. She's strong enough as a character without it, and her growth and trauma can be central and a real point for her growth without having to pair her off with another character for romance. Now, the story. This is where I think Deck 9 could really make this next entry shine. What made the original Life is Strange so powerful was that every character mattered and your relationship with them shaped critical outcomes. Think of Kate Marsh. Your ability to talk her down from the rooftop of the girls' dormitory was tied directly to how much you cared for and supported her earlier on and the conversations that you got to have with her. Or at the Vortex Club party where Max could confront Victoria and try to protect her from Nathan Prescott. Those moments had so much weight because of the connections that you built with these characters throughout the game. Even in Life is Strange True Colors, which is one of Deck 9's Life is Strange games, they nailed this with Alex Chen. Whether it was the raw emotional scene with Charlotte unleashing her anger, or the way the town truly judged Alex in her confrontation with Jed, the relationships you built across the game determined the ending. That's the kind of emotional weight I would love to see return in Max's next story. Deep, character-driven choices where every interaction counts. One other thing I want to bring up is something teased in Double Exposure that I did kind of mention earlier, but Safi clearly seemed interested in finding other people like her and Max, people with powers. Safi raised this idea of forming some kind of Avengers-style group of all the people with powers. While it could be cool to see people like Daniel Diaz or Alex Chen return because they have powers so they could be part of this team, I really want to say that I really hope that this does not drift into an Avengers superhero style direction where a bunch of powered characters team up to fight crime or solve mysteries or whatever the case would be. To me, that just doesn't feel like what Life is Strange is all about. If there are characters with powers in the next game, I'd rather it just be limited to Max and maybe one other person at most. I want them to keep the story somewhat grounded, because as crazy as some of the superpowers of time travel, telekinesis, and emotion feeling are, the story still felt grounded and realistic in their own ways, so I would rather them stick to that realism with that little bit of supernatural as opposed to going full superhero mode. At the end of the day, all of this comes from a place of love and hope. I don't speak for the entire fan base as this is just my personal perspective, though I do try to take into account a lot of what I've seen other fans say. I've been a part of this fandom since 2021 when I first played True Colors, and I truly care about where this series goes next. Max Caulfield means so much to a bunch of different fans, as well as myself. I see a lot of myself in Max. That originally quiet, kind of shy kid who needed to really go through a bunch of crap to be pulled out of their shell and forced into uncomfortable situations so that they can stand up for themselves and truly figure out who they are. So, in my opinion, Max deserves a story that builds on her trauma, her personal growth, and her relationships in a way that feels as emotionally heavy as the series once was. Deck 9 have already proven that they can do this kind of storytelling, particularly with Life is Strange True Colors. I just hope that they continue to lean into those strengths and bring us another unforgettable Life is Strange game. Because at the end of the day, all we want as fans is to see this series flourish. And personally, I know that Square Enix and Deck 9 can do it, and I really hope they do. So thank you guys so much for watching this video about Life is Strange. If you enjoyed this video, or if you want to leave a message for Square Enix, as I will be sending this video their way because I have worked with them before, and I would love to get this video to, in front of their eyes, let me know down in the comments down below constructively what you would like to see in the next Life is Strange game, as I'm sure they are very open to hearing what you have to say, as they are literally holding experiences so that people can put forth their feedback for the Life is Strange games. So thank you guys so much for watching today's video, and until next time, I will see you all in the next one.